You finally get the job, the relationship, the apartment, the recognition, and for a few days, maybe a few weeks, life feels solved. Then something strange happens. The mind starts reaching again. One more promotion, one more message, one more sign that you matter. Why does getting what you want so often make you want even more? A man born a slave in ancient Rome thought he had the answer. And if he was right, most human misery begins in a place we almost never question. But first, let me tell you why this matters more today than ever. Imagine Rome at its peak. Marble temples, crowded markets, soldiers returning from the edges of empire, wealth beyond imagination in one street, desperation in the next. It was a civilization obsessed with status, power, pleasure, spectacle. In other words, not so different from us. And somewhere inside that world lived a man who began life with almost nothing. Epictetus was born enslaved. He did not enter philosophy from comfort. He entered it through suffering. Tradition holds that his master was harsh, possibly violent. By the time Epictetus became known as a teacher, he walked with a disability, a permanent reminder that life had not been gentle with him. That matters, because when privileged people preach detachment, it can sound like a luxury belief. But when a former slave says freedom is internal, you have to listen differently. He had every reason to become bitter, every reason to define life by what had been denied him. Instead, he built one of the most ruthless and liberating systems in all of Stoic philosophy. And here was his radical claim: the main cause of human suffering is not pain, not poverty, not insult, not even misfortune. It is desire aimed at the wrong things. Not desire in the shallow sense alone, not just craving money or pleasure, but the deeper, constant demand that reality must obey your preferences. This is where modern Stoicism becomes more than a motivational aesthetic. It becomes surgery, because Epictetus isn't asking whether you have goals. He's asking a far more dangerous question: what exactly are you emotionally depending on? A text back, a certain income, your reputation, your health, your child's choices, a future that unfolds exactly as planned. What he wrote next changed everything. He divided life into two categories: what is up to us and what is not. That sounds simple. It isn't, because most people spend their lives emotionally chained to things outside their control and then call the resulting anxiety normal. Marcus Aurelius would later echo this. Seneca would circle the same truth from another angle. The entire Stoic tradition returns to it again and again. Your inner life collapses the moment your peace depends on unstable things. And here's the uncomfortable part. We live in a culture that monetizes desire. Social media trains it. Advertising inflames it. The self-improvement world often disguises it as ambition. Philosophy asks whether your drive is actually just refined desperation. Epictetus puts it with brutal precision: freedom is not secured by the fulfilling of men's desires, but by the removal of desire. At first, that sounds impossible, maybe even unhealthy. Remove desire. Isn't desire what moves civilization forward? Isn't it what pushes you to create, build, love, improve? Here's where most people get it wrong. Epictetus is not arguing for passivity. He is not telling you to become numb, lazy, or indifferent in the shallow sense. He is saying, act fully but stop fastening your soul to the outcome. Aim the arrow, train your body, write the book, build the company, love the person. But if your emotional stability depends on success, applause, or reciprocation, then you are not acting freely. You are bargaining with reality. And reality does not negotiate. This is the part where ancient wisdom collides directly with modern life. Think about how many invisible contracts you make every day. I will be okay if this person chooses me. I will be calm if my career keeps rising. I will feel worthy if people respect me. I will rest once I achieve enough. Those aren't plans. They are psychological traps. Surprising fact, many people don't suffer because life is objectively terrible. They suffer because they have trained themselves to interpret uncertainty as a personal violation. Read that again internally. That is why two people can face the same event: rejection, illness, public criticism, financial loss, and one breaks while the other remains strangely steady. The event matters. Of course it matters. Stoicism is not denial, but the deeper wound often comes from the sentence added afterward: this must not be happening. Epictetus saw that sentence as the birthplace of misery. And this has consequences that are almost offensive in a culture of endless optimization. Because modern people are told that happiness lies in expanding options, increasing consumption, maximizing experiences, and curating identity. Epictetus says the opposite. The more things you feel you need in order to be at peace, the more fragile you become. That means some of the most successful people are also the most enslaved, not by tyrants, by appetite. Controversial statement. Much of what we call ambition is just socially admired dependency. And people will argue with that, and they should, because sometimes ambition is noble, sometimes it is disciplined service, but often it's fear wearing expensive clothes. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, understood this from the top of the social pyramid. Seneca understood it from wealth and influence. Epictetus understood it from the bottom. 3 different lives. One conclusion: if your peace can be taken by fortune, then fortune owns you. But there's something even more shocking. Epictetus believed desire doesn't just make you unhappy, it makes you unjust, weak, and manipulable. The moment someone controls what you crave, they begin to control you. Listen to this line from Epictetus: "No man is free who is not master of himself." That sounds noble on a poster. In practice, it is devastating, because self-mastery is not tested when life goes your way. It is tested when the message never arrives, when the plan collapses, when someone else gets the reward, when your body hurts, when you are misunderstood. That is when your true ruler is revealed. Is it reason or impulse? Is it character or craving? Do you choose your reactions, or do your desires choose them for you? This is where Stoic philosophy becomes deeply personal. You may think your problem is stress. It may actually be attachment. You may think your problem is anger. It may actually be frustrated desire. You may think your problem is low self-esteem. It may actually be that you handed your self-worth to external outcomes years ago and never took it back. And here's where many people resist Epictetus. They hear restraint and assume emotional deadness. But a person ruled by desire is not more alive. They are more easily jerked around by every fluctuation of life. Self-command does not shrink your humanity, it stabilizes it. Practical example: suppose you want admiration, not just enjoy it, need it. Then criticism becomes unbearable. Silence becomes threatening. You start performing instead of speaking honestly. You become cautious, artificial, restless. Your personality starts orbiting around approval. In trying to be loved, you become less free. In trying to be seen, you lose sight of yourself. Now apply the same logic to wealth, romance, success, youth, even health. Yes, even health. And this is the debatable point that will bother people. If your peace depends entirely on staying healthy, then illness will destroy more than your body. It will colonize your mind. Stoicism does not say health is unimportant. It says making peace contingent upon it is dangerous. This is where it gets interesting. Epictetus doesn't just tell you what to avoid. He gives you a replacement. Redirect desire toward what cannot be taken from you: integrity, clarity, discipline, courage, justice, wise judgment. In Stoic terms, desire what is truly yours, your use of your own mind. That shift changes everything. Suddenly, a difficult conversation becomes training. A delay becomes training. An insult becomes training. A loss becomes training. Not because pain is good, but because every event reveals whether you are still trying to control the uncontrollable. And if you're honest, you'll see how often misery enters through one hidden phrase: "This should have gone my way." Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to meet events as they are, not as he wished them to be. Epictetus takes that tradition to its sharpest edge. Stop demanding from the world what the world never promised. Now we arrive at the heart of it. Epictetus writes, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly." This is one of the most misunderstood lines in all philosophy. It does not mean approve of evil. It does not mean never resist injustice. It does not mean become passive in the face of suffering. It means stop wasting your life emotionally fighting the fact that reality is reality. The event has already arrived. Your resistance to its arrival is what multiplies the pain. Read that slowly in your mind. The event hurts, but your rebellion against its existence often hurts even more. A breakup happens, a diagnosis comes, a business fails, someone betrays you, you age, plans crumble, time takes what it always takes. The Stoic does not say this is pleasant. He says this is here. Now what is the best use of my character in response? That is an entirely different mode of being. And once you see it, you begin to notice how much suffering is generated not by life itself, but by the collision between life and fantasy. You wanted permanence in a world built on change. You wanted certainty in a world governed by contingency. You wanted control over other minds, other bodies, other seasons of fortune. What if the deepest form of self-improvement is not becoming powerful enough to force life into your preferred shape, but becoming wise enough to stop requiring that? That question sits at the center of modern Stoicism, and it is why this ancient wisdom feels so unnervingly current. Because look around, we have more convenience than any civilization in history and are still plagued by anxiety, envy, resentment, loneliness, agitation. Why? Because comfort does not cure disordered desire. In some cases, it feeds it. The more options you have, the more your mind can attach itself to. The more comparisons you see, the more inadequacy grows. The more pleasure becomes available, the less tolerance you have for discomfort. Epictetus offers an antidote so severe it almost sounds unmarketable. Want less from what is not yours. Not less effort, not less excellence, less emotional dependency. This is the aha moment. Stoicism is not about suppressing life. It is about relocating freedom, not in possessions, not in praise, not in luck, not in whether people understand you. Freedom lies in your faculty of choice, your ability to meet events with judgment rather than compulsion. And when that clicks, a strange peace becomes available. You can love without clinging, work without worshipping success, prepare without panicking, enjoy without needing permanence, grieve without collapsing into cosmic protest. What would your life feel like if every desire were examined with one question? Is this something I can pursue honorably without becoming its servant? That may be the most important philosophical question you can ask, because the real opposite of slavery is not political power. Epictetus knew that better than anyone. The real opposite of slavery is inner independence. Go back to the opening image. You got what you wanted, and then the mind reached again. That restless movement, that endless leaning into the next thing, is so common that most people never question it. They just call it being human. Epictetus calls it bondage, not because wanting things is evil, but because unexamined desire quietly turns life into a hostage situation. Your peace is held ransom by outcomes. Your mood is dictated by chance. Your identity is negotiated by other people's opinions. So here's the challenge. For the next 7 days, notice every moment of agitation and ask one question. What am I demanding right now that is not actually under my control? Write it down, be specific. I'm demanding that this person reply. I'm demanding that my work be recognized. I'm demanding certainty. I'm demanding that the past be different. Then do the hardest part. Separate preference from dependence. You may prefer success, prefer health, prefer love, prefer stability. Of course, Stoic philosophy never asks you to become a stone, but can you prefer them without handing them authority over your inner life? That is the real work. And if you can do that, even imperfectly, you begin to reclaim something our culture constantly steals: sovereignty over attention, emotion, and judgment. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in tents on military campaigns. This is why Seneca warned against becoming a slave to luxury. This is why Epictetus, a man who began with no status at all, could speak about freedom with unmatched authority. Most people will spend their entire lives avoiding this truth. Will you? Drop your interpretation in the comments. What desire has caused the most suffering in your life, and what changed when you finally saw it clearly? If this shifted something in your thinking, subscribe. We go deeper every week, because the person who controls your desires controls your life. Want less, become free.